Do you ever wonder why you feel tired even when you sleep enough? Samurai legend Miyamoto Musashi, known for his strength, focus, and undefeated mindset, believed that true energy comes from discipline, balance, and purpose. His teachings weren't just about sword fighting. They were about mastering your daily life. In this guide, we'll explore practical tips inspired by Musashi's philosophy to help you boost your energy, sharpen your mind, and stop feeling tired all the time. Get ready to live with the power and clarity of a true warrior. The weight you can't explain. You wake up, and the world already feels heavy. Not loud, not dramatic, just heavy in that quiet, suffocating way that doesn't leave bruises, only questions. You've slept, you've eaten, you've done everything you're supposed to do, yet something inside you drags like a blade dulling against stone. It's the kind of exhaustion you don't admit out loud because no one sees it, no one hears it. But it follows you, like a silent fog drifting behind your footsteps. An exhaustion without a name, a weight without a shape, and the more you try to explain it, the more it slips through your fingers like smoke. Musashi once wrote about the unseen opponent, the idea that a warrior's greatest battles were the ones no one else could witness. Not the clash of steel, not the roar of combat, but the private standoffs inside the mind. You know this opponent. You feel him in the mornings when your bones feel older than your years. You feel him at night when your thoughts won't settle. This is the enemy that drains you more than any physical struggle ever could. The ancient warrior carried a sword. You carry burdens no one can touch. Expectations, unfinished ambitions, quiet disappointments, emotional noise that never seems to stop humming. A man today bleeds energy through invisible wounds, wounds he's taught to ignore. This tiredness you feel, it's not weakness. It's a shadow, the natural consequence of misalignment. Something in your life is moving in a direction your spirit refuses to follow, and that friction steals from you quietly, constantly. The fatigue you can't explain is the messenger you keep trying to silence. But it's here again, and it wants you to listen. There is a kind of tiredness that sleep cannot touch. You've felt it. An ache behind the ribs, a dimming behind the eyes, a heaviness that has nothing to do with muscles or rest or calories. It is the fatigue of a spirit slowly leaking its strength, drip by drip, until even the smallest task feels like lifting a rusted gate. Modern men try to fix this with supplements, with caffeine, with routines built on optimization, but none of those reach the place where the real damage is happening. They treat a drowning man by handing him a towel. Musashi believed that a man's spirit weakens long before his body shows it. He understood that the true battlefield is internal, and that exhaustion begins in the unseen places. Today, those unseen places are under siege from 1,000 cuts. The constant pull of notifications, the endless stimulation of screens, the emotional clutter we pretend isn't there. Each distraction is a tiny crack in the scabbard. Each unresolved resentment, each swallowed truth, each moment you betray your own boundaries, another fracture. And through those fractures, your energy spills with every step you take. Picture a warrior walking with a cracked scabbard. Every movement bleeds a bit of strength. Nothing dramatic, nothing visible. But over time, he wonders why his hand trembles, though he hasn't fought a single battle. He wonders why his breath shortens, though he hasn't run. He wonders why his spirit feels thin, like worn fabric pulled too long in the rain. That is you when you ignore the quiet battles gnawing inside. The unresolved anger, the unspoken grief, the paths you stay on out of habit instead of truth. You are tired because your spirit is lugging around unfinished wars. You're carrying yesterday's wounds into today's battles. You've been trying to move forward while something inside you keeps looking back. And as long as your spirit is scattered across old injuries and unexamined pains, strength will continue to leak from the cracks. Your exhaustion isn't a mystery. It's a message. And the message is simple. Something within you is calling to be faced, or it will continue draining you until you do. There is a specific kind of exhaustion that settles into a man who is being pulled in more directions than his spirit was designed to travel. You feel it in the mornings, before a single task has begun, an overwhelming sense that you are already behind, already scattered, already failing a dozen obligations that claw at you before you've even stood up. It is not the fatigue of effort, but the fatigue of fragmentation. Your mind is split, your attention is divided, your will is stretched thin across too many fronts. And a man who fights on too many fronts eventually loses the battle inside. Musashi taught, if you chase two rabbits, you lose both. He wasn't speaking about rabbits. He was speaking about the human spirit and what happens when a man tries to live in multiple directions at once. Today, the world encourages exactly that. Multitask everything, respond instantly, keep up with the feed, chase every opportunity, hold every relationship, stay accessible, stay informed, stay connected. But a warrior who raises his sword at 10 enemies in 10 directions strikes none of them with precision. His strength bleeds outward, diffused and wasted. Imagine a swordsman surrounded, not because he's in a battle, but because he's in a life that refuses to let him focus. His energy doesn't drain through effort, it drains through diffusion. Each alert steals a fragment of presence. Each obligation claims a piece of intention. Each should pulls at him like a hand tearing fabric. He swings at everything, commits to nothing, breathes shallow, lives reactive, and without ever breaking a sweat, the man is exhausted. This is the exhaustion of modern men, waking up scattered, going to sleep unfinished, and spending every moment in between trying to fight too many invisible enemies. You're not tired because you lack strength. You're tired because your focus has been stolen. A man's power comes from direction, not intensity. Even the strongest spirit collapses when pulled apart. Your fatigue is not a sign that you are weak. It is a sign that you are divided, and a divided man cannot win. But today, men live in a world that has erased that sacred pause. You move from task to task, screen to screen, noise to noise, without a single moment where your body remembers the ancient language of calm. Always braced, always tense, always on. And over time, the body forgets how to lower its guard. You can feel this forgetting in the tightness of your jaw, the stiffness in your shoulders, the shallow rise of your breath. A body stranded in survival mode begins to mistake tension for normalcy. The bow is pulled back too long. At first it holds, then it strains. Then the wood begins to warp, quietly, almost invisibly. And one day, you wake up tired. Not because you worked hard, but because you have forgotten how to release. Modern men are exhausted not only by what they do, but by what they refuse to stop doing. You've taught your body that rest is weakness, that stillness is laziness, that slowing down means falling behind. But the warrior who never lowers his sword soon finds he cannot lift it with the same strength. Your fatigue is a consequence of perpetual readiness. The nervous system stuck in caution, the mind stuck in vigilance, the body stuck in a state it was never meant to inhabit for so long. Stillness isn't the absence of effort, it is the restoration of it. It is the quiet where strength regathers, where breath deepens, where clarity settles like dust after a storm. You are tired because you have abandoned the spaces where your spirit resets. You forgot the pause. You forgot the breath. You forgot the moment of quiet before the strike. Your exhaustion is the body's rebellion against endless tension. And it will continue to rebel until you remember the stillness you were born to carry. There is a deeper exhaustion than lack of sleep, and it comes from the quiet betrayals you commit against yourself. The times you say yes, when your whole spirit is whispering no. The moments you tolerate what chips away at your peace. The days you abandon your own rhythm to meet expectations that were never yours to begin with. This kind of fatigue sits in the bones because it is not the body that's tired. It is the self that feels dishonored. Musashi lived with ruthless self-respect. He refused anything that dulled his spirit or bent his path. He understood that a warrior's honor wasn't about glory. It was about internal alignment. And when a man loses alignment, he loses energy, not dramatically, not loudly, but steadily, like a candle burning at the edges. Today, men hand out their boundaries like weapons they allow others to carry. You give away your time, your focus, your patience, your silence. Piece by piece, day after day. And then you wonder why you feel hollow. Imagine a warrior who hands his sword to everyone who asks for a piece of him. Soon he stands unarmed, exposed, negotiating his own worth with people who do not carry the weight of his battles. That is what self-disrespect feels like. Bleeding honor through tiny compromises, dimming strength through small surrenders. A tiredness grows inside you when you know, deep down, that you are living below your own standard. The exhaustion you feel is not from doing too much. It is from allowing too much. From stretching yourself thin for people who would never return the gesture. From trapping yourself in roles you've outgrown. From silencing truths that would set you free. Every time you betray your own boundary, a piece of your spirit withdraws, leaving you more fatigued, more resentful, more disconnected from the man you're meant to be. Your tiredness is not a failure. It is a signal, a quiet call to reclaim the respect you've been giving away. A reminder that you cannot carry strength if you keep surrendering your sword. There comes a point when a man realizes that rest alone will not save him. He learns that the real restoration begins not in comfort, but in structure. Musashi understood this with a clarity few men ever reach. His solitude was not an escape. It was architecture, a deliberate shaping of his inner world so his spirit could gather itself without interruption. Discipline to him was not punishment. It was the act of repairing the vessel that holds a man's strength. Modern men think discipline is a cage, something that restricts freedom. But undisciplined living is the true prison. Scattered days, chaotic thoughts, environments filled with noise that erode the edges of the mind. Every undone task, every messy room, every unfinished intention steals a fragment of presence. Discipline is not harshness, it is containment. It is the dam that stops your energy from leaking into 1,000 meaningless directions. Imagine a blade dulled by neglect. You cannot restore it through intention alone. You sharpen it through small, steady strokes. The edge returns not because you wished for it, but because you created a rhythm that refines it. In the same way, strength returns to a man through simple rituals that gather his energy instead of scattering it. Rising with early light, beginning the day in silence, giving your first attention to what matters most, moving your body with purpose, keeping your environment clean enough that your mind can breathe. These are not chores. They are acts of repair. You are tired because your life has no container. Your days spill into each other without ceremony, without shape, without a boundary that protects your energy. Discipline gives you that boundary. It builds a structure strong enough to hold your spirit without letting it leak. There is a moment in every warrior's life when he realizes that strength is not built by adding more, but by removing what weakens him. Musashi lived this truth with an almost frightening simplicity. He carried little, he owned less. His world was stripped down to what sharpened his spirit and nothing more. Not because he sought minimalism, but because he understood that clarity only emerges when noise is cut away. Modern men drown in noise. Not the loud kind, but the constant, subtle, numbing hum that fills every corner of their lives. You feel this noise in the way your mind never fully settles. The endless scroll, the background chatter of toxic relationships, the pressure to chase every opportunity, to hold every door open, to maintain 100 loose threads, the digital clutter, the emotional clutter, the material clutter, all of it forms a battlefield so overgrown with brush that you can't even see where your strength is meant to go. And a warrior who cannot see his battlefield cannot fight with precision. He swings blindly, wasting force, exhausting himself before the real battle even begins. Imagine walking through a forest that was once a clear path, but is now tangled with vines and fallen branches. Every step takes effort. Every movement gets caught on something. That is what your life feels like when burdened with unnecessary noise. You move, but sluggishly. You act, but without clarity. You live, but half awake. Fatigue thrives in clutter. Exhaustion feeds on noise. Complexity steals energy more effectively than any enemy. Cutting away the noise isn't an act of violence. It's an act of liberation. When you clear the brush, the path returns. Breath deepens. Focus sharpens. Life becomes lighter, not because you escaped it, but because you removed what was never yours to carry. Your spirit has been suffocating under the weight of too many things that do not matter. And the moment you begin to release them, tiredness starts to vanish, not gradually, but with a surprising, almost sacred quiet. There comes a moment when a man understands that energy does not return through effort. It returns through alignment. Musashi called it the way, not a philosophy, not a routine, but a singular direction that gathers all of a man's scattered pieces and forces them into one coherent flow. A man who walks his way does not waste himself. He does not leak strength trying to be many things at once. His life sharpens into a blade pointed toward a single horizon. You have felt glimpses of this alignment before. Moments when everything inside you moved in the same direction, when your actions matched your values, when your choices matched your inner truth, when the noise of the world faded and something ancient stirred in your chest. But modern life teaches you the opposite. It pulls you into identities that aren't yours. It asks you to be adaptable, agreeable, endlessly flexible, until you no longer remember the shape of your own path. Alignment is not comfort. It demands clarity, honesty, and sometimes loss. It requires choosing who you are without apology. It requires cutting away roads that lead nowhere, even if others expect you to walk them. But when a man aligns, fatigue dissolves, not magically, but inevitably. Because misalignment is the true thief of energy. Picture a river forced into too many channels. It thins, it slows, it loses power. But when the river is guided back into its natural course, its force returns, stronger, faster, undeniable. That is what happens when a man stops negotiating his identity and begins walking in one direction with fierce devotion. His strength stops dissipating, his spirit stops wandering. His tiredness begins to fade like fog under rising light. Most men are exhausted not because they lack power, but because their lives flow in a dozen conflicting directions. Alignment is the return to one identity, one standard, one path that feels like truth rather than obligation. There comes a dawn, quiet, unannounced, when a man realizes that his exhaustion has begun to lift, not because life became easier, and not because he escaped responsibility, but because he learned to guard the one thing modern men let slip away: the spirit that carries everything. When the leaks are sealed, when the noise is cut, when the path is chosen, a different kind of strength fills him, a calm strength, a steady strength, the strength of a man who no longer fights himself. Musashi never sought to be untired. He sought to be aligned. And in that alignment, fatigue had nothing left to cling to. Modern exhaustion dissolves the same way, not by chasing hacks or forcing positivity, but by returning to the ancient disciplines that built warriors long before comfort softened the world. You feel it in the way your breath deepens. You feel it in the clarity that settles behind your eyes. You feel it in the quiet confidence that replaces frantic effort. Imagine a long winter finally ending. The sky does not announce it. The sun does not roar. The world simply warms and the light returns. Strength comes back to a man the same way, quietly but unmistakably, not as adrenaline, not as intensity, but as a grounded presence that no longer burns out. A man who rises untired is not a man without struggle. He is a man who has stopped leaking his spirit into battles that were never his. And when you reach that place, when you feel that subtle rebirth, you understand something most people never realize. Energy is not something you chase. It is something you protect, something you honor, something you align with. And when you do, strength is not something you force. It is something that returns. In the end, the world does not change for you, but you change for the world. You begin to move with the calm certainty of a man who no longer fights shadows. The tiredness that once clung to your bones loosens its grip, not because life grew gentle, but because you stopped abandoning yourself in the noise. You learned to guard your energy the way warriors guarded their breath before battle. You learned to walk with a single intention, instead of scattering your strength across 100 silent wars. There is no applause for this transformation, no audience, no fanfare, only a deeper stillness in your chest, a steadier gaze, a life that finally moves in one direction instead of 10. This is the quiet reward of alignment. This is the inheritance of discipline. This is what remains when a man cuts away everything that drains him. You rise, not dramatically, not triumphantly, but truthfully, untired, unscattered, unbroken. And in that steady silence, you finally understand. A man becomes powerful not by pushing harder, but by coming home to himself.